Hey, welcome back to YT Finance, and this is the channel where I went to business school so you didn't have to, and today we are talking about Palantir Technologies PLTR stock and SOFI Technologies SOFI stock. We're going to start off talking about Palantir Technologies. We're going to be going over their earnings forecasts for their upcoming earnings reports, the changes in their analyst price targets, and why institutional investors such as Cathie Wood is selling off most of her Palantir stock, which is not good for the overall stock price. We're also going to be looking at the future stock price projections for this company to determine if it's still a good buying opportunity. Then we have really good news for SOFI Technologies because the exact opposite is happening, where Credit Suisse and other institutions are actually adding more of SOFI Technology stock to their overall portfolio, and analysts are also very bullish on this overall company, so we have a few price target upgrades, which is fantastic news. So for more videos on Palantir Technologies PLTR stock and SOFI Technologies SOFI stock, remember to go and smash that like button right now, subscribe and turn on all notifications if you are new, comment your thoughts down below, and without further ado, let's get right into today's stories. So we're going to start off by talking about Palantir Technologies, ticker symbol PLTR. If you didn't already know, Palantir Technologies, ticker symbol PLTR, is in the big data and analytics market, and they sell their operating systems to both commercial enterprises as well as government clients. Currently, the stock price is trading for around $13.32, but the normal range for the stock as of late has been anywhere between $13.19 all the way up to $14.20. The current market valuation and market cap for the overall company is $25.79 billion, and while some investors think this is expensive, other investors are using this as an opportunity to buy this company while they think that the stock price is cheap. However, many investors are at the edge of their seat waiting for Palantir's earnings report to come in, which is set to come in around February 15th. We have guidance anywhere from February 14th all the way until February 18th. However, analysts already have forecasts and estimates for what this earnings report could bring into us. So, the estimates for their earnings per share is 4 cents for the current quarter, which is fantastic news. Analysts are also anticipating that their annual EPS or earnings per share growth is going to come in at about 15 cents for the year of 2021, which is fantastic news. They also anticipate that this overall EPS growth will continue until 2022, where they could bring in around 20 cents positive per share, which is fantastic news. They also anticipate that the earnings per share will grow at a rate of 33.3% over the next year, which again is fantastic news. Analysts have also given us revenue projections for Palantir Technologies, with the average estimate coming in at around $413.99 million, with the low-end revenue estimate coming in at $396.01 million, and the high-end estimate coming in at $418.1 million. But regardless about which revenue estimate comes in for this most recent earnings report, the average estimate would say that their revenues increased by around 28.5%, and that would represent fantastic sales growth appreciation as time goes on. This would also mean that their total revenues for the entire year of 2021 could come in at around $1.53 billion, which would indicate basically a 40% revenue growth rate year over year, which is amazing news for investors, and this should make people very bullish on this overall company. Now, I do want to say that short-term indicators for the PLTR stock says that we should sell the stock right now. However, that's not what I am personally doing, because I believe in this company long-term, and I think that past 2023 to 2025, that's when the company is actually going to start scaling the revenue even more impressively. So to me, it doesn't really matter what the stock does in the short term, because I am holding this long-term. Out of 10 analysts, 4 analysts are recommending that investors at least hold Palantir Technologies for the future so they can already own the company as it starts ramping up in their revenues and earnings per share and free cash flows estimates. However, one analyst is very bullish on SOFI Technologies, and they have a price target of around $31 per share on the high end. But we also have another analyst that says that the company is currently overweighted, and we have another 4 analysts that say to sell the stock. So we definitely have a mixed bag when when it comes to analysts, because some analysts like Palantir, some say it's a hold and then others say to sell it. But what about the price targets? Well, the price predictions and the price targets for the PLTR stock range anywhere from $13 per share all the way up to $25 per share, which would give us an average price target of close to $19 per share, which would still give us fantastic upside from what the stock price is currently trading at, because it comes in at around $13 per share. However, despite this mixed news, we can see that Palantir is technically oversold right now according to the Relative Strength Index, also known as the RSI. If you didn't know, the RSI is a momentum indicator, and if a stock has a number below 30, it means that it's oversold, which means the stock price is very cheap right now, and this should indicate, at least from a momentum perspective, that investors should buy the company. And right now, the PLTR stock has a rating of 20 for the RSI, which is well below 30, which means the stock could be oversold right now. We would really want the PLTR stock price to maintain a price of higher than $13.61, which would put it higher than its 9-day moving average. And we would also ideally want the PLTR stock price to break the resistance level at about $15. And once they do that, we could then find support at $15, because once you break resistance, that resistance now becomes the new support level. However, despite this good news about the RSI particularly, Cathie Wood of ARK Invest has been selling out of the PLTR stock like crazy. For instance, in Cathie Wood of ARK Invest's ARKF ETF, which is the ARK FinTech Innovation ETF, Cathie Wood and her analysts sold around 944,000 shares of Palantir Technologies, which is almost 1 million shares. And this is only for one of her ETFs, because if we go over to her ARKG ETF, which is the ARK Genomic Revolution ETF, she sold almost 1.5 million shares of PLTR stock. Again, we can see more selling coming from the ARKQ ETF, which is the ARK Autonomous Technology and Robotics ETF, where she sold over 250,000 shares of Palantir Technologies, coming in at 275,334 shares in total for this particular ETF. We also see even more selling from her ARKW ETF and her ARKX ETF, where she sold 447,000 shares of Palantir and 63,996 shares of Palantir respectively. So Cathie Wood has changed her mind temporarily about Palantir, but I think she is doing this just to buy Palantir back at a cheaper price. I do still think that she is long-term on this particular company, but I think she is using the current macroeconomic environment to get Palantir at a cheaper price. So my bet is that she is going to buy back in once the stock even trends lower, if it doesn't break that $15 resistance line. And that will conclude the PLTR stock news. Now let's talk about SOFI Technologies, ticker symbol SOFI. And if you didn't know, SOFI Technologies is a fintech company, and it's a one-stop shop for all your financial needs. This makes it a lot better and more innovative than regular banks, and they also have higher interest rates for savings accounts compared to other banks, on top of extremely competitive loaning platforms. So this is why I am extremely bullish on SOFI Technologies, and why other institutions such as Credit Suisse are buying up more SOFI stock to add to their portfolio. In a previous video, I also talked about how SOFI is extremely well positioned to take advantage of the current macroeconomic environment, because now that they are officially a bank, because they have their sanctioned bank charter to operate as a bank, they can now increase their interest rates as the Federal Reserve increases their interest rates. So this is actually going to benefit SOFI and other banking stocks in the long term. So this would be a fantastic stock to invest into to fight against rising interest rates, which is why I personally think that SOFI has a fantastic long-term potential, and it also has fantastic short-term potential, because unlike Palantir Technologies, SOFI could be a winner this year as well as many years to come, while Palantir is still scaling their overall business. And many other reputable institutions know this, which is why they are picking up more SOFI stock. An example of this is Credit Suisse AG has recently increased their holdings in SOFI Technologies by around 9.4%, specifically in the third quarter. They now have a position in SOFI Technologies that is worth around $27.6 million according to their most recent SEC filing. But Credit Suisse is not alone in this. Many other institutions are also adding shares of SOFI to their overall portfolios. So let me just name a few. We have Oppenheimer & Company Incorporated, which has also lifted and increased their exposure to SOFI Technologies by around 56.1% also in the third quarter. And now they have a SOFI stock position that is valued at around $1.895 million. We also have Geode Capital Management LLC, which also increased their allocation to SOFI Technologies by 792%, which is absolutely insane. They now hold around $85.5 million worth of SOFI stock. We also see Blue Shift Asset Management LLC also started a position in SOFI Technologies, and they bought around $1 million worth of SOFI stock. This is also echoed by Bank Julius Baer & Co., which also purchased and started a position in SOFI Technologies of around $289,000. So these are very reputable institutions and hedge funds that are buying more SOFI stock because SOFI is a good stock to buy now and in the future, according to these institutions. But what about analysts? What do analysts think about this company, and what are the projections for their upcoming earnings report? Well, for their previous earnings report, which was November 10th, we can use these statistics to determine what statistics and metrics that SOFI needs to beat for their next earnings report. The company reported a loss of around 5 cents per share for their EPS or earnings per share for the most recent quarter, and that beat estimates because analysts actually thought that they were going to lose around 14 cents per share, so this was a 9-cent earnings beat, which is absolutely fantastic. The firm also brought in revenues at around $277.19 million for that particular quarter, and this also beat analysts' projections and expectations because they only thought SOFI was going to bring in $263.16 million. However, for the full fiscal year of 2021, SOFI Technologies, according to very bearish analysts, is supposed to have a loss of $1.61 for their EPS. Now, I do not agree with this. I think SOFI Technologies is going to have an earnings beat for both their revenue as well as their EPS, and I highly doubt it's going to be above a loss of $1.50 per share, but time is going to have to tell. We also see many other institutions increasing or at least becoming more bullish on SOFI stock. For instance, Citigroup has a buy rating for the SOFI stock price, and they have a price target of around $20. Credit Suisse, which also increased their allocation to SOFI Technologies, which is now worth $27.6 million, which we talked about previously, has a neutral rating on the SOFI stock price, but they increased their stock price target from $16.50 all the way up to $19. Wedbush commented and has an outperform rating on the stock and gives it a $20 price target, very similar to what Citigroup has it at. Goldman Sachs Group, however, is more bearish on the company. They give it a $16 price target and a neutral rating. While lastly, we have Jefferies Financial Group, which increased and lifted their SOFI stock price target from $24 all the way up to $26, which means they give it a clear buy rating. According to MarketBeat.com, which takes in considerations these institutions as well as analysts' price predictions for the stock, they think that SOFI stock has an average price consensus of around $21.70 with a clear buy rating because no analyst, according to MarketBeat, has a sell rating on SOFI Technologies. So with that being said, I would love to hear your thoughts about the PLTR stock and the SOFI stock. Remember to smash the like button on this video if you haven't already, subscribe for more updates like this one, and I will see you in the next YT video.